This is a Kia Telluride, a midsize crossover that reshaped the automotive landscape when it debuted in 2019. Not only is the Telluride a great driver, it's very maneuverable, but it's also spacious with lots of cargo and passenger space. When it debuted, shoppers no longer had to choose between the maneuverability of a crossover like the Highlander or the Mazda CX-9 and the carrying capacity of something like a Ford Explorer or a Chevy Traverse. Kia offered those shoppers some cake, and then it encouraged them to eat it. And now it looks like they may have done it again. The Kia EV9 has the potential to be another transformational model because it's the only mass market, fully electric, real three-row SUV that's not swinging for the luxury segment. Until now, if you needed something like a Telluride but you wanted to go all electric, your options were limited and expensive. Sure, there was the Tesla Model Y, there still is the Tesla Model Y, but if you've seen that third row, you'll know it's not exactly spacious. And that means your options are the Tesla Model X, the Rivian R1S, and the Mercedes-Benz EQS SUV, which also has a pretty tight third row. And unlike any of those very expensive models, the Kia EV9, it has a starting price of $56,395, including destination. Will the EV9 be a breakout hit, and is it worth gambling on Kia's electric powertrain when the Telluride is sitting right there? Let's compare the two and find out. The light trim is the base model. It can do 230 miles on a charge thanks to a single motor making 215 horsepower and 258 pound-feet and a 76.1 kilowatt-hour battery. The light long range swaps in a 99.8 kilowatt-hour battery, drops horsepower down to 201, and increases the driving range to 304 miles. Now, the light and the light long range are equally efficient, so you're truly paying for convenience. You don't have to charge as frequently, and you'll cover the same amount of miles per kilowatt hour. Wind and land trims come standard with the 99.8 kilowatt hour battery and a dual motor powertrain good for 379 horses and 443 pound-feet of torque. They both do 280 miles on a charge. The GT line sacrifices range for performance with a 270 mile range, but 516 pound-feet of torque. Horsepower does stay the same at 379. We all love to love the fast ones, but I'm not sure if the EV9 GT line adds enough speed to really justify the higher price and the shorter range over this land all-wheel drive model. I mean, it's 0.7 seconds faster to 60 miles per hour. Frankfurter. There you go. That was 0.7 seconds. Frankfurter. Doesn't feel like a lot to me. Of course, that's more to say that this EV9 land trim is fast, not that the GT line is slow, because this car is not slow. I mean, it's not slow. Now, I gotta hit the brakes there for a moment. Outside of acceleration, the EV9 is also a good driver. I mean, the steering feel, although this vehicle is very heavy, I mean, it's still an electric vehicle with a big heavy battery and a big heavy battery at that, but the steering does feel good. It's not too light, it's properly weighted. A lot of EVs go a little too light on the steering for my taste, and the pedal feel is really good as well. You can crank up the regenerative braking, but the brake pedal never feels grabby, never feels like you're being lurched about, and I like that. And of course, being an EV, the EV9 offers a very peaceful and almost serene cabin, devoid of any wind or road or engine noise, because, you know, there's no engine. The Telluride is a simpler situation. One V6 engine making 291 horsepower and 262 pound-feet of torque, run through an 8-speed transmission to either front or all-wheel drive. The Kia Telluride is a startlingly good driver. I mean, the handling is, especially given this car's size and weight, the handling is superb. There's very little head toss or body roll, even when you're tackling some seriously curvy roads. I also find that the suspension is appropriately compliant. It doesn't feel floaty, but it also, here's a pothole, doesn't really jar you that much when you hit some rough pavement. Now the steering is crisp, the brakes are good. Overall, I mean, a 3-row SUV doesn't have any right to be this good a driver. So the question becomes, what are the differences between driving the Telluride and driving the EV9? Well, the first one is acceleration. Simply put, nothing beats an electric vehicle when it comes to off-the-line acceleration. The Telluride isn't bad. I mean, a lot of it comes down to Kia's decision to go with a naturally aspirated V6 engine instead of a 4-cylinder, which you see in a lot of the competition. That V6 is strong, it makes good power, you're not gonna have any problems on the highway or getting up to speed on the highway, so I like that. The other thing that you're gonna notice is a little bit in terms of handling. The EV9 is really heavy. I mean, there's a 100 kilowatt hour battery in our test car, and that weighs a lot. And you're gonna notice that when you're turning, when you're kind of carving through those corners, you will feel a little more roll, particularly as you bring the car a little bit past its comfort zone. I will say at lower speeds, it's really impressive how flat the EV9 handles, but physics are physics. And at the end of the day, the Telluride weighs less, probably a little more softly sprung. Whatever tuning and handling adjustments they've made to this car, they really work well, and nobody who drives the Telluride is ever gonna be terribly disappointed with how it drives. I really like this vehicle. The EV9 really does look like it was designed to be an EV replacement for the Telluride. I mean, look at it. The similarities are startling. It's boxy, but not too boxy. The Telluride does get a few more wheel designs, and the wheels on the EV9 are pretty funky looking. The EV9 is the decidedly more futuristic looking of the two vehicles. First, we have this available matte paint job. We have these flush door handles and the big sleek windows. They terminate up here, almost eliminating the D-pillar. At the front, the Telluride's tiger nose grille and squared up headlights grab your attention with a pretty large lower air intake down below. Compare that with the front end of the EV9. We have these black pieces above and below, creating a sort of negative space effect to build its own tiger nose grille, but much stealthier. And the star map LED headlights are much sleeker, but something's missing on this test car. If you buy an EV9 with this matte finish paint, you lose out on the digital lighting pattern in the grille. Even without the trick lighting, the EV9 is the standout between the two. I mean, the Telluride, this is a great looking vehicle, but that car turns heads. The Telluride feels much more utilitarian inside, with the big traditional shift lever, a larger center console, this bin between the front seats, big enough to fit multiple things. We've got all sorts of stuff in there. And it also feels really nice. I mean, there's leather all over the place, and I love this wood trim here. Ergonomically, this car feels custom made for my 5'11" frame. There's plenty of space in the back, and there's even room for adults in the way back. The gauge cluster and the touchscreen are dual 12.3-inch units housed within one beautiful curved display. It's a good look, but if you can believe it, this is already old news for Kia. Now, there is a lot on offer here. You have a Wi-Fi hotspot, you've got Sirius XM satellite radio, you have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but those two phone projection systems, they both still require a wire. And that is where the tech differences between the Telluride and the EV9 start. This is Kia's new news, complete with over-the-air updates and wireless Android Auto. The new technology, it works faster, it looks crisper, it's easier to navigate, and while it's still housed in one unit with the driver information display, there's an additional little touchscreen, gear already selected, little touchscreen in the middle just for your climate control. So you actually have two touchscreens here and your driver instrument cluster. It all looks really good. I will say one little complaint: the positioning of this with the steering wheel is terrible. I can't see the climate controls at all when I'm driving, and that is a bit of a problem. So if you need to change the heat, or, turn on your air conditioning, maybe have the front passenger do that. Even with the new climate control panel, there are only a few physical controls, including these haptic buttons. But the display's tile layout is much easier to read quickly than the Telluride's slew of icons. In terms of tech, I think the EV9 is the clear winner. Other than the tech, though, the EV9 just doesn't look or feel quite as nice as the Telluride, particularly on the interior. Now, I do really like the faux leather seats here. They are both comfortable and cruelty-free. But otherwise, there's a lot of plastic in this vehicle. And now Kia proudly celebrates their use of sustainable materials in the EV9, and that's great. I really like the headliner. I really like the headrests. But this gray plastic material, even if that's made of recycled fishing nets or whatever it is, it just doesn't feel up to par for a $75,000 vehicle. In the back of the EV9, you're gonna find up to 42.8 inches of legroom in the second row, which is a fair bit, and 32 inches in the third row. Now, both of those numbers are a little bit more than you get in the Telluride, but not so much that you would really notice. The important part is that this is comfortable in all three rows for adults. Now, I actually sat in the third row of this vehicle, this EV9, with a colleague while Natalie was driving in Boston traffic, no less. And both of us, we were pretty comfortable. Now, I told Elliot when we started filming this that I'm not gonna climb into the third row. He thinks I'm not gonna get into the third row, but I suspect, dear viewer, that you might want to see what it looks like when a grown man climbs into the back of the EV9. And we're not going to fold the seat forward and do it as easy as possible. We're going to climb through the back between the captain's chairs, and you can see just how simple it is. Part of this is because it has this beautiful flat floor. We have the EV platform to thank for that, and it's really not that bad. If I can get my butt past those shoulders here, slide over. And here I am. This seat is pushed almost all the way back, and I have some legroom. I can move it forward, get a little extra. And this one, this is pushed all the way back. Admittedly, this is a little tight for me. But if I just cross through here one more time, pull this forward, not that much. You gotta leave a little room for the second row, guys. This is not bad. I'm genuinely comfortable, and I'm almost 6 feet tall, almost. Preciously close to 6 feet tall, but I never quite made it. Now, let's hop out and look at actual cargo space. The EV9 offers 20.2 cubic feet behind the third row, 43.5 behind the second row, and 81.7 cubic feet total. All of those numbers are less than what you get in the Telluride, but the EV9 does have a little frunk. For many of us, the appeal of the EV9 is that it's essentially an electric Telluride. We now know that there are significant differences between the two vehicles beyond just the powertrain, and the big one is price. Because while the EV9 looks like a bargain next to a $100,000 Mercedes EQS SUV, next to the Telluride, it can seem a little pricey. If you're willing to settle for the base model with front-wheel drive, the Kia Telluride can be yours for as little as $37,585. Or if you want all the bells and whistles, that MSRP climbs to $54,780, including destination. Now, the Kia EV9 is more expensive, and our as-tested price runs up to a whopping $74,230, and it's not even the most expensive one. Of course, if you buy an EV, you're going to save cash on gas, but how much? Well, the EPA says that an all-wheel drive Telluride should cost you an extra $1,650 in fuel over this electric EV9 with all-wheel drive, and that is not nothing. But it also means that at $75,000, you would need 12 years of those fuel savings before you matched the price of that Telluride. Thank you for watching. There are, of course, more reasons than just the financials to choose an electric vehicle. We realize that. EVs are greener, they are cleaner, and for many of us, they offer a nicer driving experience. So we'd love to hear from you in the comments section below. Which of these cars would you pick? And don't forget to subscribe to the CarGurus YouTube channel, where you can watch Natalie's full review of the EV9 and check out some other comparison reviews, including one of the Telluride and its other competitor, the Hyundai Palisade.